Months of rumour and speculation all come to an end today as we return to Melbourne for the opening race of what promises to be an enthralling season. Welcome along then to the Australian Grand Prix. Just south of Melbourne's downtown business centre is the one and only Albert Park circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy circuit with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake and a couple of good passing opportunities here as well, thanks in part to the DRS zones into turns 1, 3 and 13. Can Mercedes start with victory in their bid to win a 7th consecutive Constructors' title? Could Ferrari or Red Bull establish an advantage early on? And with 22 cars on the grid, how quickly can the new team find their footing? Well, it's great to be back, Anthony Davidson. We've got a lot to talk about this year.
That's right, Crofty. It felt like a long winter, but it's good to finally be back. I have to think the usual suspects will battle it out at the front, but there are always going to be some teething problems early on in the season, so whoever can keep on top of their issues will have the advantage today.
As I mentioned earlier, we're up to 11 teams this season, with a new entry run by, well, of all things, an owner-driver. That's something we haven't seen in this sport since Hector Raback over 4 decades ago. So how are they looking so far?
Ever since their participation was announced, there were questions being asked about whether an outfit like this could survive, and certainly it's proving to be a trial by fire so far. Let's hope they can continue to draw an investment and find a little more pace as well.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Vettel, Alexander Albon, and Verstappen, Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, and Esteban Ocon, Perez, Stroll, Kimi Raikkonen, and Kvyat, Gasly, Giovinazzi, the owner-driver, and Kevin Magnussen, Grosjean, Matsushita, Russell, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
Hello and welcome to the 3rd episode of the F1 2020 MyTeam Series. It's finally race day, and if you've been following so far, you're probably aware of the crazy start to the re-establishment of the Super Aguri F1 team. Today, I will be starting 17th on the grid, and I've decided to try something a little different. Here we are amending the race strategy, and I've decided to go slightly unconventional. With the races set to 25% of the full distance, it is claimed that the quickest race strategy is to start on the soft tyres, and then pit around lap 7 to switch to the mediums for a one-stop race. I'm going to try something different by doing the inverse of this. That is, starting on the mediums and then going longer before pitting for a final stint on the softs. Let's see how this works and if the gamble actually pays off. As we line up for the start and wait for the 5 lights to go out, this will be the first time racing for the new Super Aguri F1 team. And it's go, go, go. It's a good getaway off the line as Gasly in front of me seems to be struggling with wheel spin. This allows me to move across the outside and leapfrog into 14th place. And then going into the first corner, I'm trying to stay out of trouble, trying to work around the outside, and then I make contact with an AlphaTauri.
Full course caution. The safety car is out. Keep an eye on the delta. We need to keep it positive to avoid a penalty. Slow down. Maintain positive delta.
And as I try to reverse myself out of trouble, I then become involved with another collision, this time with George Russell. So looking at the replay of the start once again, it seems that most cars get off the line fairly cleanly, and then if you look in the background, I'm trying to make as many spaces up as possible whilst trying to stay relatively on the outside and try and stay out of trouble. But the replay did show that I actually touched the grass with the rear left tyre, and that probably caused the car to slide out and inevitably lose control. The first lap events basically meant that my original strategy is now well and truly out the window. So in this case, I'm going to serve the 5-second penalty now, and then switch to the hard tyres and try and go until the end of the race. Hopefully by pitting now and with the safety car out, I can catch up with the back of the pack. From there we should be able to claim some places later on in the race as everyone else pits.
Go, go, go.
It's a fairly lengthy pit stop at 13.6 seconds, but then again that's due to the front wing replacement.
Pit strategy complete. See these tyres through to the end now.
I'm actually genuinely surprised though, because after the amount of front wings that I totaled during the practice sessions, I don't even know how I still had one available. Lap 4 and the safety car has come in. It is time to resume racing. I am basically in plumb last place, and just in front of me is George Russell. He also had to pit due to the collision, but he switched to the medium tyres.
We're trailing our teammate by 2.6 seconds.
It's a difference in strategy, but I'm hoping that my tyres will come into life whilst his will start degrading later on in the race. As my engineer mentioned, my teammate Matsushita is in 19th place. He is caught in a sandwich between Romain Grosjean and Nicolas Latifi. I'm not sure what else is happening in front of me, so I just need to keep my head down and just focus on the race. Lap 6 now, and going round turn 12, you can see that I'm still behind George Russell. I am in DRS zone, so I am trying to do my best to get in front of him, but he's been held up behind Nicolas Latifi, his teammate. Meanwhile, my teammate Matsushita in the other Super Aguri is now starting to pull away from the Williams cars. Here is where it gets interesting though. I may be at the back of the pack, but this is where the pit window opens, so everyone else will need to make their stops. This is now my chance to claim some places back. However, most people will be switching soft tyres to the medium tyres whilst I'm on the hard compound. So it's going to be difficult to keep them behind me with a worse tyre compound and a slower car. And as I say that, the two cars that are directly now behind me is Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes and Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari. It's going to be an almost impossible task. So skipping on to later in lap 7, you can see that George Russell is still in front of me and Hamilton and Vettel are both still behind me. But if you look in front, Latifi is struggling even more, and as you can see approaching the last corner, there is smoke coming out of his car. Hamilton had a slight look at overtaking me on the outside at turn 15, but that small moment of pause due to Latifi's issue has caused a massive reshuffle at the front as we find ourselves in the middle of the front runners' pit stop battles.
Okay, some information on Bottas. They seem to have an issue.
Slight mistake on the exit of turn 2 allows Hamilton to overtake me, and Verstappen's also having a look on the outside.
Some information on Latifi. They've got a serious car issue. It looks like they're retiring. Safety car deployed. The safety car has been deployed. Watch your delta. Make sure you keep it positive as we catch the pack.
And Verstappen just manages to overtake me in time as Latifi's issue turns out to be terminal.
7th place. Verstappen is ahead of you. Less than a second separate you. They're on fresh mediums. Vettel is behind you. The gap is less than a second. They're on fresh mediums. The distance to the leader is 2.7 seconds. Look after these tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound. 7 laps to go.
So with 7 laps to go, we're more or less at the midpoint of the race. With the pit stop window now complete, we find ourselves in 7th place, which is way above our expectations. And as the race is about to restart, I make a novice mistake at turn 15. Verstappen pulls away nicely and follows the leader's tail. However, I get caught napping, reacts ridiculously late, and a mistake in the final corner puts me in a vulnerable position at the restart. Overshooting turn 1 compromises my entry at turn 2, and I spend the rest of the lap defending from Sebastian Vettel. And and by this point of the lap I am sick of seeing that red car in my mirrors. However, I'm not going to yield my position that easily as he tries to attempt an overtake around the outside. We make contact as I probably fought that position too hard, and Kimi Raikkonen seems to capitalise on this as he slips through on the inside. And if we look at the replay, you can clearly see how my position is impacting the race, as there's a massive train behind me whilst Vettel is attempting the overtake. And from that battle you can actually see there's damage on the left side quad. Rejoining a lap later, and Danny Ricciardo is now directly behind me, with Vettel falling back behind him.
There's 5 laps of fuel remaining.
At this stage I'm really struggling for grip, and a mistake at the exit to turn 12 has opened the door for Danny Ricciardo to send an overtake around the outside. I am not going to give up that easily though, so as we approach Ascari I decide to outbrake him just to hold on to my position. However, with all that defending, I eventually make a mistake at turn 15, allowing Vettel to capitalise on the battle and finally overtake me. There now seems to be an orderly queue forming behind me, all of whom wanting to overtake this significantly slower car.
Okay, the stewards have now enabled DRS. DRS is now online.
And with DRS now enabled, I feel like a dead man walking. I have no tools at my disposal to defend effectively against these faster cars. Coming up to the end of lap 13 with 2 laps to go, I make a mistake on the final corner, which allows Lando Norris to slip through on the inside and overtake me. His teammate Carlos Sainz is also directly side by side, and with DRS enabled, he easily overtakes me on the pit straight. As I did with Ricciardo, I decide to fight back, once again trying the outbrake manoeuvre and forcing Carlos Sainz to go around the outside. And after aggressively reclaiming my place back, Carlos Sainz then lines up another overtake move at exactly the same place.
This is your final lap of the race.
And as shown with this replay, I decide to take the inside line and defend early on, and despite being side by side at the approach of turn 1, I still managed to desperately hold on to the position. But all of that was to no avail. In the final sector of the final lap of the race, Carlos Sainz finally manages to beat me in the drag race going up to Ascari, and there is a massive scramble behind me, all wanting a piece of the action. Danny Kvyat also manages to get in front of me, following Carlos Sainz, and I find myself having to battle with both the Renaults coming into the final 2 corners of the race. I somehow managed to fend off both cars going into the final corner, and approaching the finish line does appear to be a hard-fought 12th place finish.
Alright, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
However, as Charles Leclerc picks up the race victory, I unfortunately pick up a 5-second penalty and end up being demoted to 20th place. Before you ask why I was demoted immediately to 20th, here's a rollback of an incident that did actually happen just before the first safety car ended.
Repeat that. There's interference.
And then looking back at the end of the race at a different angle, you can clearly see the train effect that was happening behind me.
Another superb Australian Grand Prix comes to an end, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory. So Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
Ferrari are at it again, an excellent performance at today's Grand Prix, and they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. And with today's impressive result, Charles Leclerc steps into the championship lead. Some amazing talents out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
There's a few contenders, but George Russell definitely stood out, I think. A really solid drive from him today, and one I'm sure the fans enjoyed.
Let's move on to the constructors. Red Bull take over as championship leaders. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
Good day today. Let's have your take on it. Why do you think you weren't as quick as your teammate today?
I think that's a tad harsh given that I did finish in front of him, however there was that penalty. I did make a few mistakes and they were more consistent.
It wasn't the cleanest race today, was it?
Wow, these media questions are really critical, aren't they? Well, I'm not exactly going to give up. None of us wants to be the person that backs down. These things happen.
Appreciate your time.
And that concludes the first race of the season. It's such a shame that I basically defended for my life for no apparent reason, but hey, that's racing I suppose. If you did like the video, then be sure to subscribe, and until then, I will see you at the next race for the Bahrain Grand Prix. That's all from me. Until next time, take care and goodbye for now.